Let's move on to, this one caught my mind. I did not see this story coming, but my good friend H.I. Sutton came through again. He drops bombs on naval news, man. And this one's at USNI News. There's a new Chinese stealth warship, and he got photos of it because H.I. Sutton is an absolute badass. This man is a living 007. He is the best, H.I. Sutton. If you don't subscribe to him, you're missing out. This guy is the true freelance spy as far as I'm concerned. He gets great stuff. Look at this photo. So obviously this is from Capella Space. That's a business where you can buy access to get satellite photos, which presumably H.I. Sutton does, and goes over them. This is a Chinese port looking down. This is a radar satellite image of a stealth boat, and look at how fuzzy it looks right here. This is nuts. You can see all the distortion. Like here, this radar is so accurate, you can see individual trees. Like, it's very good. You can even see, the piers light up like lights because they're reflecting the radar. But then the radar goes over these little ships and you can see a significant decrease in the fidelity. That's because these are stealth missile boats. And there's 8 of these type 022s. And maybe I should do a sub brief on these. I think maybe we'll do that. All right, but let's read from the piece. This one got me excited. It says, although properly described as stealthy, the China 022 missile boat is clearly visible through the synthetic aperture radar SAR satellite imagery provided by Capella Space Incorporated. The bow, A, is discernible, as is the mast, B, missile launchers, C, and the catamaran hull, D. So he's pointing out each one of these things. So even though it's diffused, because these features light up, H.I. Sutton is saying that it's not nearly as stealthy as they claim or what we thought it was. And I'll give them that, because these certainly do light up as light as the pier does. And you only need one item on a stealth object to not be stealthy, just like it just takes one sound short on a submarine to take a very quiet submarine and make it not stealthy either. So radar, it only takes one thing on your ship to reflect the radar beam back at you, and you have yourself a detection. All right. From the piece, H.I. Sutton writes, warship designs are increasingly taking their radar signature into account. Sharp angles that deflect radar waves and coatings that absorb radar energy have been standard features on warship designs for most new warships over the last 20 years. An extreme example of this is the Chinese Navy's PLAN Type 022 missile boats. Its lines are angled and sloped to deflect incoming radar waves like a stealth fighter. Everything is carefully angled, and even the window frames have sawtooth edges, according to published photos of the class. However, when viewed from space using radar-equipped satellite, they show up very well. Type 022's unique layout even creates a distinctive signature that can easily be identified. Capella Space, a company that provides radio satellite imagery, found that so-called stealth missile boats show up on when they're moored to their bases. So he's really giving them a hard time here. He's saying that this isn't stealthy at all. Whereas, I don't know. He's the expert, so we're going to go with what he says. When I say he, I'm talking about H.I. Sutton. Okay, the Type 022 Hubei, okay, we're going to go with Hubei class, was introduced to the PLAN around 2004. Since then, a very large number have been built, with estimates around 40 to 80 of these hulls. That's nuts. Unlike most Chinese Navy larger warships, is operating in distinct squadrons, typically comprised of 8 vessels each squadron. They operate in swarms, providing combined firepower of 64 YJ-83 anti-ship missiles. These are loosely equivalent to the Navy's Harpoon missile, with an effective range of about 100 nautical miles. In a conflict scenario, such as the invasion of Taiwan, these ships would rely on stealth to survive long enough to launch overwhelming missile strikes and survive. The design uses a wide catamaran hull. You can see the picture of it here, it looks like. A wide catamaran hull that allows the inward sloping sides to extend all the way to the waterline, like the Lockheed's famous Sea Shadow stealth boat. Its form is less extreme than that of the Sea Shadow, with concessions to operating factors. Its teeth, the anti-ship missiles, are carried in 2 covered hangars that hide them from radar. Overall, the boat can be described as low observable, meaning that its radar signature should be considerably smaller than what you would expect. Okay, that's what I'm saying. So in the end, I think Mr. Sutton and I come to an agreement. Let's see if we can blow this up any. So that looks like an AK 630 right here. This is the Russian point defense system, but obviously probably a Chinese variant of the same thing. And then this is the box launcher back here, presumably 4 4 missiles in that, maybe. Yeah. Not sure if they say how many missiles each one carries. Okay, the angle of the radar and the frequency of the waves will impact visibility, much like sonar, the same way. Radar and sonar, the principles are the same. The only thing that's different is the frequencies. Radar is much higher than sonar is. Unlike traditional imagery satellites, SAR can see through clouds at night. The latest imagery reviewed by USNI News provides very high resolution, VHR, of down to 10 or 50 centimeters resolution. Nobody knows what a centimeter is, Mr. Sutton. Use inches, please. In this case, the Type 022 stealth ability can be called into question, at least the angles of the radar and frequencies used by the satellites. Oh, yeah, that's true. You could figure out what frequency they're using from the satellite, couldn't you? Yeah, you could reverse the formula. Okay, let's not get too deep into the math, but it's really cool. China has this stealth missile boat. They have maybe 80 of these things. I was aware that they had missile boats, but this is the first time I've seen this type of picture of it, especially a top-down radar from space. Yeah, what do you guys think? Tyrepa says radar detection at sea level and in orbit are somewhat different. Yeah, oh, that's true. I mean, yeah, because if the source of the radar is physically closer to the target, obviously it would reflect a lot more. But just like you said in the piece, the frequency of the radar would matter a lot. 2 inches for the heathens. Okay, that's what it is. It's 2 inches. So this satellite image is a 2-inch resolution, which is why you can see the individual trees. Yeah, it's a really good, man, pretty impressive. I'm sure that this Compel in Space, if somebody wants to figure out how much that is, maybe try to sign up for it and see how much money they want. It's probably thousands of dollars a month for having this access. But I would love to have this. This would be great. Yeah. Maybe they could become a sponsor. Yeah, huh? How about that? Sponsor my show and give me some photos. Okay, let's go to the WarZone next. That's right. The United States Navy has established a specific hunter-killer squadron to go out and hunt Russian submarines in the Atlantic, man. Just like the good old days, man, of the 80s. Specific hunter-killer squadrons. This one's called Greyhounds. And the way it works is kind of unique. So we'll read from the piece written by Joseph Thick, and see what he says. I've got my own opinion on this, but let's read from him first. He's the expert. The U.S. Navy has established a dedicated anti-submarine task force of Arleigh Burke-class destroyers that will be called to conduct operations in the North Atlantic on short notice. This is like a quick reaction force, but for ships. The establishment of this force follows years of the Navy and other U.S. military officials sounding the alarm about potential threats posed by Russian submarines off the east coast of the United States. The Russian Navy continues to acquire more modern, increasingly quiet nuclear-powered submarines. Especially examples are the Yasin and Yasin M. We've talked about those before. We even have a subbrief on YouTube, so you guys can learn more about those on my YouTube channel. Guided missile submarines. The American officials have said are on par with ours and has been particularly concerned. Okay, so whenever the Yasin did one deployment down, we believe into the North Atlantic, but we're not exactly sure, but at the very least into the Norwegian Sea, I talked with a sonarman that I will not reveal the name of, who was was deployed at that time, and he was part of a hunt to go and find the Yasin. And I have on his testimony that they did not find her. Now, the Atlantic and the North or the Norwegian Sea, very big bodies of water. It's possible that they never even got close to her physically, but it's also possible that they ran right over the top of her and did not see the Yasin. So the idea that the Yasin is on par with American submarines is credible, in my opinion. This new anti-submarine force, officially named Task Force Greyhound, quietly reached initial operation capability on September 1st of this year, but the Navy only recently highlighted its creation. Greyhound is set to be a rotational force of 4 Arleigh Burkes assigned to it at all times. And this is where it gets unique. This is very good. Let's see if they go into it. The Greyhound's job is to provide the fleet with predictable, continuous, ready, and fully certified warships. Navy Rear Admiral Brendan McLean, head of Navy Surface Force Atlantic, said during a ceremony on board the Arleigh Burke destroyer Thomas Hundner, DDG 116 in Mayport, Florida, on Monday. These ships will be ready to accomplish a full range of missions, including tracking Russian undersea activity in the Atlantic and maritime homeland defense of our nation. The task force names appears to be, at least in part, reference to the 2020 movie of the same name, starring Tom Hanks, which is based on the C.S. Forster novel The Good Shepherd. The book and its film adaptation centered exploits U.S. Navy destroyer escorting merchants across the Atlantic in the face of Nazi submarines. I'm told that's a good movie. See, these convoy escort missions were part of a larger Allied naval campaign. We're not going to get into the history of that. So I'm just going to go ahead and just tell you guys how this works. So as destroyers come back from deployment, they go into an upkeep period that can be months long, 6-8 months before they finally get into dry dock, if they're even going to get in the dry dock, and do repairs. And so for 8 months, these ships are kind of waiting to be deployed again, right? There's an ebb and flow of rotation. And so after a long deployment, 6-9 months over in the Indian Ocean or wherever, they come back to port for 6 to 9 months of maintenance. Now, a lot of the times the ships are still operational while they're doing this maintenance before a long period of inoperability. And once they go to that period, obviously they're not able to do this job. So in that short window of however many months where they've just come back from deployment and they have all this experience because they just did it for so long, they can be a quick reaction force, or QRF in essence, for the North Atlantic. And that's what they're going to do. So as these Arleigh Burkes come back from these long deployments and they enter these maintenance periods, they're going to rotate into this Task Force Greyhound for that short period of time until they finally get into dry dock or into whatever deep maintenance where their ship is essentially ripped apart. And then they'll be taken out of that Greyhound task force. But by then, somebody else would have come back from their deployment and entered Task Force Greyhound. So Task Force Greyhound going forward, unless they make changes, is going to be 4 Arleigh Burkes that rotate around each other. This is very similar to the way ballistic missile submarines operate, whereas we always want to have 1 or 2 or more deployed, but in order to do that, you have to have 8 or 9 of these ballistic missile submarines. So you have some in maintenance, some in workup and training, and then the others are deployed, right? Well, it's going to be the same way, except instead of being deployed after they just get back from a deployment, you wouldn't want to do that while they're in this maintenance period, but they're still seaworthy, and they can go out and do these QRFs. This is needed because Russia continuously, they never really stopped this, to be honest with you, loves to bring an Akula off the east coast of the United States all the time. 2 times in my career, I got scrambled out, unexpectedly to go search for a freaking Akula. One off the coast of Kings Bay, Georgia. That just worked his way right up the coast. He was with a spy ship too. Whenever the spy ships deploy, we'll point out those. So the Russians, even though they didn't deploy very much in the 90s, they never really stopped harassing us in the Atlantic. And so now we have a surface equivalent to go out there. The way it used to work, I think we can talk about this. It's probably fine. Okay. Is we would just scramble the maritime, the P3s back then, out of NAS Jackson, wherever else. There's a big NAS Brunswick up in Maine, where they would come into the Atlantic, drop their fields of sonar buoys, and they would do that until the submarines, because we were slower than airplanes, obviously, get out there and we search for them too. And we would just sanitize entire areas of the North Atlantic. Well, now we've got a surface action group that's going to join us in that. So this kind of already happens. They just gave it a new name and introduced a new squadron or a new task force, technically. I think it's a great idea. It's kind of a corny name, calling them Greyhound. Obviously, that's a reference to the movie, I think. But anyway, what do you guys think of this? Is this needed? Is this important? Should we have it? Is it a waste of money? Let's see. BD says, did you find the Akulas off the coast? I can't talk about that. You know that. Intimidator says, so destroyers are going back to the roles they became famous for in World War I and II. In part, yes. Yeah. Are sonar buoys reusable? No, they're disposable. They sink to the bottom after they're done. The bottom of the Atlantic is full of sonar buoys. Kep says, another funny story of the LCS here. It's faster by a wide margin and can harass Yasin if it gets detected. That's a good point. I'll give that to the LCS. The LCS has a published speed of 40 knots. It probably can go a lot faster than that, which means that if it can maintain contact, it can run rings around the fastest submarine, even the Russian submarines. Yeah. Did you find a pineapple under the sea? Yes. Yes, we did. All right. Let's move on to the last.
Jive just got back from a 4-month patrol. Got to track one of those who bay down by mischief reef, and I'm impressed. And all this task force sounds like is any ship in 7th Fleet. We go on a scramble anytime a Jin or the Chinese carriers go out.
Well, welcome back, Kyle. Man, Kyle is Kyle's been a member or a supporter or viewer of us since 2017, going way, way back. He joined the United States Navy. I believe he became a sonarman too, but he works in the weapons department for sure. Got stationed out of Japan, went on deployment. He's now back. Welcome back, Kyle. Everyone, give it up to Kyle in the chat. An absolute stud of an individual. We watched this young man graduate high school, go to boot camp, go to all the technical A schools, get assigned to a frigate. No, it's a destroyer. He's on an early Burke, and then get deployed and now come back. Yeah, big salutes in the chat to Kyle, sir. Well done. And he, as he professionally points out, they already have a system like this in the Pacific where anytime the Jin, which is our next subbrief coming out Friday on the Patreon, that's the ballistic missile submarine China uses. They have turns out they have 8, or they're going to have 8. The 8th one isn't commissioned yet, but they're about to have 8 of these things. So anytime that they go to sea, they get scrambled to go find them. Well done, sir, and welcome home. Very, very proud of Kyle. Extremely proud. All right, let's go on to the last story. This one was sent in by one of you guys, a viewer like you. I'm sorry, sir, I forgot your name. I should have wrote it down. So credit to the viewer that sent this in. I'll do better next time. I'll write your name down. U.S. successfully flight test Raytheon hypersonic weapon, the Pentagon says. This comes from Reuters, written by Mr. Mike Stone. It says here, from the 27th, which I think is today, actually. Or no, it's yesterday. The United States has tested an air-breathing hypersonic weapon capable of speeds faster than 5 times the speed of sound, making it hypersonic. That's the definition. That's the defining line. Mach 5 or greater, hypersonic. Okay, making the first successful test of class weapons since 2013. I wonder what took place since then. I guess we had some failed tests, maybe. The test took place as the United States and its global rivals quicken their pace to build hypersonic weapons, the next generation of the arms that rob adversaries of reaction time and traditional defeat mechanisms. In other words, it's very hard to shoot these down. That's really what we need to be working on. I appreciate that we've got our own hypersonic missile that works now. That's great news. But what we really need to do is be able to defend our ships, troops, bases in Guam and Okinawa from these weapons. How in the world are we going to shoot down a maneuvering object that's going 5 times the speed of sound? I don't know how you do that, but we need to get some very smart people on working on that solution, because that's really what we need, is to be able to defend ourselves from weapons like the Russian Zarkon hypersonic cruise missile, a weapon President Vladimir Putin has touted as part of his new generation missile systems without equal in the world. And whenever they successfully tested it in July, I would have agreed with it. But if we have a successful test now, maybe we can join the ranks of having operational hypersonic missiles. The free flight test of the Hypersonic Air-Breathing Weapon Concept, or HAWC, occurred last week, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, said in a statement. This brings us one step closer to transitioning HAWC to a program of record that offers next-generation capability to the U.S. military, Andrew Knodler said, HAWC program manager in DARPA technical office. Man, what a cool job that is, to work at DARPA. Man, I wish I could get a job there. I couldn't do streams, obviously, if I did that, though. There is no target date for the transition. Okay, so they just had one test. I'm sure they need to do multiple tests before they start producing these weapons. So it's not in service is the point. The hypersonic weapon travels in the upper atmosphere at speeds of more than 5 times the speed of sound, or about 6,200 kilometers per hour. That's 3,853 miles per hour. Okay, I understand that. That's wicked fast. Oh, man. This missile, built by Raytheon Technologies, RTXN, if you want to buy the stock, I love how they put that in the story, was released from the aircraft seconds before Northrop Grumman, NOC, scramjet. You should invest in both of those, ladies and gentlemen. I'm telling you what. Talk about stocks that will basically continue to rise forever, like, I don't know, Walmart, Amazon, and Google. Any of these military industrial complexes are a safe bet anymore. And don't take financial advice from me. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's for the lawyers out there. Okay. The DoD, Department of Defense, has identified hypersonic weapons and counter hypersonic capabilities as the highest technical priorities for our nation's security. Did he say anything about defeating them? Identifying. Oh, encountering. Okay, there he goes. Ooh, good. So at least they're considering that. We need to figure out how to shoot these things down. The problem is they have so much energy. Like, how do you shoot down a meteor? You know, it's just, do we have the capability to do that? Right now, I don't think we do. Investments of the hypersonic strike have begun to pay dividends, answering the progress already made, like to the likes of Russia and China. Tom Krakow, an analyst to the Center of Strategic and International Studies, told Reuters. This is another great source of information. If you guys want more information about this, go to csis.org, and they have lots of free articles over there. A really good think tank. Okay, in 2019, a little bit of history here. Raytheon teamed up with Northrop Grumman to develop and produce engines for the hypersonic weapons. Northrop's scramjet engine technology uses the vehicle's high speed to forcibly compress incoming air before combustion to enable sustained flight at hypersonic speeds. So this is not a glide vehicle. This is an air-breathing hypersonic vehicle. That is extremely advanced. Because like what North Korea claims to have done is put a piece of metal with wings on it on top of a ballistic missile, pushing it past Mach 5 and then releasing it in a stable trajectory. This is an engine, a scramjet engine that operates at those speeds, maintaining its speed. It's not a glide vehicle as much as it is a scramjet, that's incredible. So the Hawk vehicle operates best in an oxygen-rich environment where speeds and maneuverability make it difficult to detect in a timely way. It could strike targets much more quickly than subsonic missiles and significant kinetic energy even without high explosives. That's a great point. We had weapons in the past we called rods from God, which were essentially tungsten rods we would drop from space. And they had so much energy coming just out of orbit that it didn't need a warhead. It was just because it was such a dense metal moving at incredible speeds, like a meteor. Imagine watching a meteor fall out of the sky, but it's hitting you. Yeah, that's what these things were. Obviously smaller than a meteor, but it looks like a meteor coming at you. And so the same principle here is there's a lot of energy, a lot of kinetic energy in these hypersonic weapons. Very cool piece. So I'm glad to see that we finally got one that works, at least in tests. And that's just the next step in getting this into operation. So we can at least be competitive offensively with Russia and China, who do have credible hypersonic weapon programs, unlike North Korea, which is kind of, I honestly don't believe anything coming out of North Korea, to be honest with you. But we will talk about them if they make claims like they did today. All right, let's see what chat says. QW says, maybe all you need to do is throw it off balance a little bit and it'll break up under its own G-forces. Yeah, exactly. Instability at those speeds, of course, I agree with you. I think it would destroy itself. If hypersonic missiles are even slightly damaged, it could tear itself apart, says another. Navy Dave is here. Nihilist says, Project Thor, crowbars from space. Yeah, I heard it referred to as rods from God or something like that. It's been so long, I kind of forget the name we had it, or called it. Okay, I was a contract for DARPA back in 1998 with Unix sysadmin. Says Vulcan Rider, really? Well, man, I would love to hear some of your stories, but you probably can't tell them. St. Jack says, much love from Australia. Hey, thank you. Hey, Australia. Discount Engineer, thank you for the subprime. Masto, defense in depth sounds like the only option. Yeah, defense in depth is always a good idea if you can manage it. Defense in depth is complicated, especially at these speeds, because your reaction time is near, seconds if you have defense in depth. Cap says, hypersonic seems like it's better off to jam chaff than to shoot them. Yeah, however, whatever makes it miss, man, right? Whatever makes it miss. Hey, a clerical error is here. It says, expect countermeasures to likely start with attempting to affect its guidance system. Yeah, that's a great. Vulcan Rider says it only took a secret clearance. Yeah. Really, for DARPA? I'm sure DARPA probably has different levels of clearances like most places. Yeah, whenever I started doing NAVC contracts, I only went to secret, and I really didn't need any more than that because I didn't need to know the things that were above my level, because I was basically an SME where they would bring things to me, drawings, and be like, hey, what do you think of this? I'm like, that makes sense. That's a dumb idea. Fire that guy. hire this guy. I was kind of like that. I was the gatekeeper of good ideas in part. I did all sorts of things, but that was one of them. Yeah. All right. Anyway,